I know you're upset about the impeachment thing today. In case you're just now turning on the television, there's supposed to be an impeachment trial in the Senate. Chuck Schumer, big cheese in the Senate, said, nah, we're not going to do that. And everyone on the right is very upset about this today. Look, I'm not telling you not to be upset. It's evil, it's bad, it's wrong, it's all those things. However, I will tell you this, and I really don't mean this to be insulting, but I'm rude, so it's probably going to come off as insulting. If you're really upset that they're not going to have an impeachment trial, maybe you're a little naive. I'll just say it this way. When people have been screaming about this all day, this is what I've heard, two different things. I've heard, he has to, the Constitution. I've heard that. And I've heard, what a hypocrite Chuck Schumer is. He just said, he's on camera from a couple years ago saying we have to have a trial. He's a hypocrite. Again, I'm not trying to be mean. That's a little naive. No one cares about the Constitution anymore. You may love it. I love it. It's a wonderful document. Every time you bring up the Constitution, you sound like a child. And I'm not insulting you. I'm not insulting the Constitution. I'm really not. It's a childish notion because Chuck Schumer, the other side, they don't care about it. If they don't care about it, in fact, if they hate it, if they have no use for it, then it goes from being this wonderful document that guarantees freedoms to just not a piece of paper. It means nothing. It means nothing. Of course, he didn't care about the Constitution. And no, he doesn't care about hypocrisy either. These people don't stress those things. That's what people on the right stress. Well, I don't want to be a hypocrite. Are we doing things the right way? Well, we can't become a monster. Communists don't think in these terms. Why do you think? I told you that this was going to happen, didn't I? Remember what I said? I came right here on the show and I told you that if they actually have an impeachment trial, that I will shave in a Fu Manchu mustache. When I went home and told my wife that, she freaked out. She said, you better not. And I said, honey, don't worry. Trust me. There's not going to be an impeachment trial. Now, why did I know that? Because I understand exactly what we're dealing with here. I know who these people are. Stop with these notions of hypocrisy or the Constitution. Those days are in the past. Sad, but they're in the past. We're in a whole different ball game now. We're in a power ball game, which brings us to Mike Johnson. Now, Mike Johnson, before he became Speaker of the House, was rock solid. Mike Johnson's been on this show. Remember when he came out and said this?
The greatest threat to us at the end of the day is our nation's debt. And so we have to get serious about this. You need adults in the room to advance the cutting, the limiting of government and getting it back down in its size and scope. And that's what these fights are about. They're worthwhile fights. They have to be done. And again, it's messy sometimes, but that's our process. That's how it works.
And today, more foreign aid, more money for them, more money for them, more money for them, no border security, no money for you, because now he's Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. Again, I'm angry about it, but I knew this was coming too. One side is fighting, the other is laying down. If we are going to take this country back, we are not going to do it from Washington, D.C., not from Congress, not from the White House. It's just not going to happen. Now, I will lay out, probably next segment, ways we can take this country back. But before we do that, let's talk to one of the good people there who actually is trying to do some good work, Congressman Chip Roy of Texas. Well, this is all going pretty poorly, but one of the people who's been actually attempting to do some good things for us there is, of course, our friend Congressman Chip Roy of the great state of Texas. Okay, Chip, I know you don't have a ton of good news because it's all kind of crappy out there, so why don't you just update us on where we are on everything. First, let's deal with all the foreign aid stuff. Money for them, no money for the people who can't afford eggs anymore, but where are we at with the foreign aid stuff?
Yeah, Jesse, more typical DC swamp stuff coming your way. And, we've been at this now for a while, and we've had continuing resolution after continuing resolution after omnibus bill after omnibus bill, and we never dealt with the border. And it was all done with this promise that, okay, guys, don't worry, we'll do the border, and Ukraine will be the fight. Trust me, that'll be the fight. So here we are, just another Lucy in the football moment, where what we're being told is the bill that we're supposed to allow to go to the floor is a bill that would provide $95 billion in foreign aid, money for Ukraine, money for Israel, money for Taiwan, and some other money for some defense priorities and supplemental. And that money, we should just bless and have a rule and vote for it, despite the fact there's nothing for the border. You can put aside whether or not we should do it on the merit. Right? You can debate whether or not we should spend another dollar in Ukraine at all. A lot of the Republican conference doesn't want to do that. But have that debate. That's fine. But we were always promised that we would secure the border of the United States first. That's not happening. And in that $95 billion is about $8 billion, we're told, we're still looking at the text, $8 billion that would be for, we haven't seen the text, let me be clear, $8 billion that would be for money that would go to Ukraine in a kind of, for whatever it wants to use it for, government funding, bureaucrats. Another $9 billion is for humanitarian assistance, which we know could be used to backfill for, Hamas and Gaza and used for other nefarious purposes. So yet again, we're doing the bidding of the Democrat Party. There's a reason Chuck Schumer has said it's a great bill. There's a reason that Hakeem Jeffries has said it's a great bill. And there's a reason that Joe Biden has said it's a great bill. It's because it's their bill. I don't understand it, but that's where we are.
Okay, Chip, can you explain something conceptually before we get to the FISA stuff and everything else? I understand we don't have 435 Chip Roys in the House of Representatives. I get that. I understand we don't have a bunch of you on the Republican ticket. I understand that. I get that there are a bunch of weenie losers in our party. I understand that. But these are only Democrat bills, as you've pointed out. And I know that it is the tiniest majority. I understand all this. But there have been no Republican priorities at all passed. Chuck Schumer, this is the second time he's bragged about what we passed. Last time he went on the Senate floor and bragged that we didn't have to cut a nickel. They continuously brag about what we do. Can you explain why this is happening?
One word, fear. And when Republicans operate in fear of shutdown, right? Fear of default on the debt, when you're talking about the debt ceiling increase last year, fear in this case of what happens to Israel, what happens to Ukraine. As I said, I have a lot of, a soft spot in my heart for Israel and for making sure we stand with Israel when this president won't, right? This president is basically, thumbing his nose at Israel, leaving Israel and Prime Minister Netanyahu trying to fend for himself when this, administration literally abstained in the Security Council in a vote that would force a ceasefire or pressure them to ceasefire. And I want to be able to say, hey, let's throw something here to support Israel when this administration won't. But we tried last night, Jesse, to say, let's just have a singular vote on just Israel. And we were working hard to try to get the votes together. Look, there's a lot of Republicans that are skeptical of that. But we tried to work it out and said we could go do that. But, the speaker didn't choose that path. Instead, we're going to go with this bill, which was all pre-cooked. It's the same as the Senate bill for the most part, almost $100 billion. The Defense Department comes in and says, well, if we don't do this, Ukraine will fall. If we don't do this, some bad will happen to Israel. So again, back to my point, it's one word, it's fear. We don't govern, but we are operating in a representative body out of fear. And when you do that, you lose. If you signal to the other side, well, no, we're never going to shut down. Or, oh, well, we will always vote to fund Ukraine or Israel without respect to the border, right? If we're not going to do a default, we're not going to go there. Every time you do that, you lost all your leverage. So you might as well just quit and give them your voting card.
We now have two GOP members who are talking about bouncing Mike Johnson. Now, you can bounce him or don't bounce him. I don't give a crap. I don't see anything changing either way. But is Mike Johnson going to be bounced? If he does get bounced, where do we go from here? What's happening with all this?
Yeah, I don't know. It is my very direct answer on that. I didn't support vacating McCarthy last fall because of this process. I knew what would happen. There's a funny story. One of my former member, he's a friend of mine. He said after John Boehner was deposed, and look, John Boehner was doing a lot of stuff I didn't like, and Paul Ryan was the speaker, and Paul Ryan was doing stupid stuff. Boehner saw this guy in a local diner, and he walked in and goes, "Hey, what's wrong? So and so, same crap, different speaker." He said a different word. And, the reality of this town is that it wants to do the same thing. Here's the good news. We have a bigger block of people now who want to say no, a bigger block of people willing to take the arrows of saying, you don't get to keep doing this. We're not winning yet. We may not win fast enough for the iceberg to hit the Titanic, but a bigger group of us are grabbing that steering wheel and trying to wrest it away from the establishment blob here that gave you the FISA reauthorization with no warrants. It's giving you this massive $95 billion supplemental to continue and perpetuate war with no clear mission and without making sure we have a secure border ourselves. that gave you the massive spending bill that, frankly, not even a majority of Republicans voted for 2 weeks ago, because it's filled with all sorts of earmarks, ridiculous spending, $200 million for an FBI headquarters after the FBI is being weaponized against the American people and the former president. I could go on and on, Jesse. That's the bottom line. We'll see what happens with the speaker. I'm not interested in chaos for chaos sake. I'm not interested in perpetuating the same crap here. But I'm going to keep fighting on policy, and then we'll see what happens on the speaker front.